To Newswatch. Well, Malcolm Turnbull is, in my opinion, trying to destroy the Liberal government that he once led, only up till last year. And the ABC is always happy to help that kind of mission, and particularly when it comes to their favourite topic, global warming. And so, last night on the ABC's final Q&A of the year, it was stacked, absolutely stacked, Q&A style, with people who thought alike, particularly on global warming, which meant that no one, especially not the host, contradicted Malcolm Turnbull when he exploited the New South Wales bushfires and the smoke over Sydney to make several false and scary claims.
We are seeing more and hotter fires. It is the consequence of a hotter and drier climate.
Now, there are several falsehoods, direct or implicit, right there, important ones, and the point is that there was no one, of course, on the ABC panel to point them out, which you would get if you had a diversity of views. For instance, no, New South Wales has not been getting drier over the century, nor has Australia, by the way. And no, this drought was not caused by global warming. Even one of our most committed global warming scientists, Andy Pittman, admits that.
As far as the climate scientists know, there is no link between climate change and drought. Now, that may not be what you read in the newspapers and sometimes hear commented, but there is no reason a priori why climate change should make the landscape more arid.
Later on, Pittman got embarrassed when I kept quoting and said, no direct link between global warming and drought. You heard him. And again, with Turnbull's claims, the fires, no, they're not the worst we've had, not by a long shot. They're, well, not yet at any rate, and they're certainly not unusually earlier either. Not fires in New South Wales. We've had many of them start in September even. And what's more, of course, the world's actually getting less fire, not more, whatever Turnbull might imply. We had a study by NASA in America a couple of years ago showed that the area burned by fires is down 24%. A quarter over the last 18 years. Didn't hear that on the ABC, and nor will you, I'm afraid. Joining me on Newswatch is Gerard Henderson, head of the Sydney Institute, columnist with the Australian newspaper, and author of the Media Watchdog blog, out every Friday, don't miss. Gerard, it frustrates the hell out of me that the ABC can discuss global warming and not have one single person on a panel to put the other side. I don't think ever, or simply to fact-check the exaggerations. What is going on?
Well, I think it's more of the same. It's particularly bad last night because, in fact, it was 6-0 because you'd have to put Tony Jones in the group, and then there were the 5 panellists who all agreed with each other on any matter concerning climate. That's what we get. I noticed in the lead into the program and on Media Watch, Paul Barry commented for the first time criticised the ABC panels and said that there was one panel that it was 3-1 or 4-1 effectively against the government. He thought it should be better balanced. Then you went into Q&A immediately after that program and you get a 6-0 against the government. But well, Tony Jones is leaving as presenter full-time, and Peter McAvoy, the executive producer, that was his last program, and whether it improves next year or not, I don't know. But the lack of political balance is becoming more manifest virtually every year that the program runs.
Yes, his place has been taken by Hamish McDonald, who I think is a very promising young reporter, but I have to say that I haven't seen any evidence to date that Hamish McDonald is prepared to buck the party line, which takes a lot of guts in the ABC. We shall see. If the government... And the thing here, no one seemed to point out to Malcolm Turnbull, hey, listen, you know, you ran the government,
yes.
You were Prime Minister for 3 years, and if it's so easy to stop fire simply by dialing down the world's temperature, why didn't you do it when you were Prime Minister? Is that a fair comment or not?
Well, it is a fair comment. Mr Turnbull was Prime Minister for 3 years. Mr Morrison's been Prime Minister for just 1 year. And if it was that easy, the Turnbull government could have commenced it. But as we know, we're 1.3% of emissions. And the concept that Australia can do anything to halt climate or change the climate is just farcical. What we can do is that we can move against the build-up of fuel, which seems to be causing a lot of these problems. Now, anyone,
yes.
I mean, there are people watching this program tonight in New South Wales who would remember the terrible fires of 1939, which was also called Black Friday in this state, as it was in Victoria and South Australia, and the dreadful fires of 1968. And there have been others as well. Then there were Canberra fires in 2003. I mean, this is very common in Australia, and as many people, residents are saying, they're very annoyed that they couldn't get the fuel around their properties burnt back. And that is something that a government, probably a state government or a local government, can do. The idea that the Commonwealth government can do stuff, as Mr Turnbull implied last night, is simply farcical, and he couldn't do it, and if he couldn't do it, who can do it? And the answer is nobody.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think people are seeing an opportunity to push the global warming scare here, and that's why you get no history attached to these reports and all this, you know, oh, this is the worst ever, when it's not. They're trying to, you know, stampede people. Paul Bongiorno has been an ABC commentator for a long time. I'm not sure whether he's still got a gig anymore, whether he got the boot this year, but he tweeted this about the smoke over Canberra. He said the entire region is tinder dry, but still they deny climate change and the human contribution to it. The species, presumably humans, deserves all it gets, unfortunately. Now, Gerard, what struck me as particularly unhinged about that tweet is here he seems to be arguing, this former priest, that we allegedly think wrong thoughts about global warming, so we deserve fires. Because even if we had right thoughts, we couldn't still change the climate to stop them. It is for our thoughts that we have been punished by this hellfire. Is that how, have I got that a little bit wrong there, or is that the strange thinking of Paul Bongiorno?
Well, I don't think that Paul Bongiorno is the current embodiment of teaching in the Catholic Church. He is the current embodiment of an alienated intellectual. And so what he's saying there is the species is being punished, presumably by the climate gods. But bear in mind, go back a couple of weeks, and when Israel Folau said, I mean wrongly in my view, but he said that God was getting back at society by bringing about fire and flood, people just roared their contempt at Israel Folau, and he had to back off. But Paul Bongiorno is saying essentially the same thing. He's saying the species is being punished. We're all being punished by the climate gods. And
for not thinking right.
So, but if Israel Folau had said the species has been punished in a tweet recently, people would be screaming at him, particularly on the ABC and in the left-wing Saturday paper, for which Paul Bongiorno scribbles every Saturday. They'd be going mad. But this tweet is completely unhinged. But we're all supposed to sit back and say, oh, Bonge is clever because he appears on the drum and he, you know, he's very forceful in his views. But I don't know.
That was just brilliant. You're drawing the connection there is just brilliant. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
Gerard, this is our last News Watch for the year. I want to really thank you for your help. You've been fantastic. And if people are going to get, you know, sort of lost without your guidance while we go in recess, they can always, I guess, you'll be churning out your Media Watchdog blog every Friday for all through the break, correct?
Well, I'm having what journalists call a bit of a well-earned break, but it's not as long as Four Corners' well-earned break, which is 3 months this year. We're having about 6 weeks off.
I was hoping you would be setting a standard after you were jibing at all their breaks, but Gerard Henderson, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.